It's time to take off your clothes, enjoy clothes-free living, and join us for Naked, Nudist, and Naturist.
Welcome to Naked, Nudist, and Naturist, the show that celebrates clothes-free living for all. I'm your host, Frank Stone.
And I'm your correspondent, Lisa Monroe, and I'll be reporting on all things within the naturist community. So it's time to get naked and join us.
And enjoy clothes-free living on Naked, Nudists, and Naturists. Well, welcome on in to Naked, Nudists, and Naturists, episode 19 today. We really thank you for being with us. We enjoy this time together. We look forward to it every single week, getting together with you to discuss and proclaim and enjoy clothes-free living for all of the right reasons. The pool is available. The hot tub is off to the right in the back corner. The grill is going. The cooler is packed. What could be better? What's a better recipe for having a terrific clothes-free day other than those amenities, as well as the sun and maybe a slight breeze and working on your tan a little bit? No tan lines. It's another advantage of living the clothes-free life, especially when you're outside. But we are glad that you are with us today. We give you a brand new show every Saturday morning, 6 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. Hits Spotify, goes to every platform under the sun after that. We are not in control of when it hits the other platforms. Sometimes right away, other times it takes a while. But for sure, if you are up and ready to go, depending on where you live, 6 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time every single Saturday morning, that is when it hits Spotify. We do guarantee that. Hits our website moments after that. Lisa Monroe gets up bright and early on Saturday mornings, takes the link that gets posted at 6, and by 6:01, 6:02, she has it posted on our website, so you can find it there as well. And then perhaps you can find it other places immediately, too. We are not in control of that. It sometimes happens, sometimes doesn't. But you know how to find us because you found us already and you're listening right now. And we do appreciate this time with you. As a reminder, we had planned to take off the Saturday right after Thanksgiving, the USA Thanksgiving. And then we were going to take off 2 Saturdays at Christmas time, the one right after Christmas and the one right after New Year's Day. And a few weeks ago, we decided, you know what? Not everybody has friends and family all over their house on those holidays. Some people are flat out alone, or you're with people part of the time and alone part of the time. And we don't want you to be alone. So we're going to do shows on those days. We announced that on Twitter over a month ago, and we mentioned it on our previous show. So you will not be alone for the holidays. We will be with you every single Saturday for the rest of 2023. And kicking off 2024 every single Saturday, then too, at least for the first 3 or 4 months. We will need a break at some point. We are not superheroes here. We do need to get sleep and rest and relaxation. We don't have any planned days off yet, but I'm just giving you a heads up. At some point in April, May, or June of next year, we'll take a Saturday off, probably the Saturday, the day before Easter Sunday. That's what we are looking at. But we'll get back to you with all that. Nothing to worry about now. Just letting you know we will be here every Saturday for sure for the rest of this calendar year, 2023, including those 3 very important Saturdays that are right after holidays. We do want to thank you again and again and again and again and again for listening to us. It's a labor of love. We enjoy this. We put a lot of time and energy and effort into it, and it's been recognized by you. Based upon the emails and direct messages and notes on Spotify, notes on our website. We appreciate that you appreciate us. If that makes any sense at all, we appreciate you just as much for listening. The numbers are huge. The show has caught on like wildfire, and we are literally all over the world. I'm sure there are a few countries we've not hit yet, but we're working on it. Eventually, we'll have every country in the world under our belt here. Just a matter of getting the word out. And anytime you repost something on Twitter, of course, more people get to get a shot at listening. And we appreciate you doing so. Not even so much for us as it is to educate people that this is a real thing. It's a normal thing. We're in this together, and we enjoy the clothes-free life for all of the right reasons. And the more people who hear the message that it's normal to do that, the better off all of us will be. Well, on today's show, Lisa Monroe will be coming in just a few moments, and we will spend extended time with her today discussing some messages that we have recently received. We will read a few emails to you. We even have a voicemail today. And then we have a voicemail for next week, too. We'll be doing the same thing on next week's show, which will be episode 20. More emails, more direct messages, Spotify notes, website notes. You take the time to write in. We take the time to always write back. But we also take the time to read some of those on the air. We can't read all of them, because that's all we would be doing then, is beginning to end 60 minutes of reading emails. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. Maybe we'll do that down the road. But for today, we've selected a few, and we'll be doing that in just a few moments with Lisa Monroe, our weekly correspondent on naturism. We will also have part one of my interview with TIM CHIZMAR. Do you know TIM CHIZMAR? You probably do, being in the naturist/nudist community. Tim is all over the place. He's conducted multiple interviews on Stefan Deschain's show, the Naturist Living show. You can find them there. And he's also a best-selling writer, award-winning speaker, a ghostwriter. He's sold many short stories and screenplays in Hollywood. He co-chaired the Horror Writers Association, the Las Vegas chapter, for a couple of years. He's been in movies. He produces and makes his own movies. And, oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you, he's a big-time nudist, loves the clothes-free life for all of the right reasons. And not only is he a comedian who does stand-up comedy, he does it while naked. That's right, absolutely no clothes on stage, telling jokes. And in most cases, as you'll hear during the interview, he expects the audience to be the same way. It's just a big night of naked activity and laughing your tails off, because Tim CHIZMAR, on top of everything else, is drop-dead hilarious. He will have you in stitches today. He's just one of those genuinely and generally funny guys. He starts talking and people start laughing because he's so darn funny. He's also worked with some of the bigger names in comedy, people like Dana Carvey, Kevin Smith, John Lovitz, Jeff Foxworthy. He's worked with all the greats out there in the world of comedy. Not a fan of the world of comedy, and he'll explain why that is. There's kind of a nasty little thing going on there in the world of comedy. Not surprising. It happens all over the place. Not everywhere, thank goodness. In fact, he points out that in the world of writing, not the case. Comedy writers are great people, he says. Comedians themselves, well, maybe not so nice some of the times. But we'll talk to Tim CHIZMAR about all of that, and also we'll talk to him about the website clothesfree.com. They go around and report on naturist stories on video. You can subscribe and get all the videos. And, of course, being a news show about the news in naturism and nudism, they have newscasters, except in that field they call them nude casters. And Tim CHIZMAR is a nudecaster for clothesfree.com. Puts a lot of videos together and just does a remarkable job in the world of comedy and movies and writing and ghostwriting and speaking and coaching. And, of course, a lot in the world of nudism, this clothesfree.com, as well as his own movies he's putting out. And, by the way, when he gets actors for his movies, for his nudist movies, he wants real nudists to come in, not some actors who come in and take their clothes off for a scene, put them on, and stay clothed the rest of their lives. He wants actual nudists who can also act, and he does that as well. So part one today of my interview with the terrific Tim CHIZMAR, and part two on next week's show, which of course will be episode 20. So as we are getting ready to bring Lisa Monroe in for her segment, an extended segment with her today, we have a question for you, and that is, what do you need/want from us? People have suggested, hey, this once a week thing is great. Could you do it twice a week? Could you do it 3 times a week? Well, the answer is yes, we could. We could do it 7 days a week. We could do a 3 or 4 hour show every day, 7 days a week. Not sure what kind of shape we would be in or how our other projects would look, but yes, the answer is we could, but we probably will not. We are about maxed out right now with the once a week show, a full hour show, which is important to a lot of our listeners, we're finding out, because you can plan every single show. Okay, I have an hour. Frank and Lisa, Naked Nudist Naturists, are coming on. I have an hour. Let me plan this baby out. I'll go work in the garden for a half an hour. That's half the show. Then I'll make lunch. That's 15 minutes. And then I'll go back out and sit on the deck for the last 15 minutes. You can plan your listening that way, and a lot of people do. They plan to work in the garden, cutting the grass, maybe work in the garage, maybe at work with headphones on, in the kitchen. A lot of people use this show to get through the various activities in life. And what better way to do it? You're doing whatever you need to do while listening to Naked, Nudists, and Naturists. And again, this is episode 19 today. We thank you for being with us every Saturday morning, 6 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. I don't know about you, but I think I hear some music sneaking up on us. We'd better turn to Lisa Monroe so she doesn't get mad at us. So let's bring in our weekly correspondent on naturism, the terrific Lisa Monroe. So here she is once again, as she is every week, our weekly correspondent on naturism, Lisa Monroe. Good morning, Lisa. How are you today?
Good morning, Frank. I'm doing terrific. How about you this morning?
Not bad at all. And once again, you've entered the studio, smiling face, in a good mood, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, you go through life once, so you might as well have fun.
And I should point out clothes free. Now, the question is, were you clothes free when you got out of your car, or did you wait till you got inside to take care of that?
Well, in deference to the community, I waited until I got inside the door.
That's right. Inquiring minds wanted to know, so I thought we better ask that question.
Yes.
Well, I thought today, for today's episode, we get a lot of emails around here, a lot of messages on Twitter, and respond to each one of them. And we try to get some on the air. We can't get them all on the air because then that would be the entire show. We'd have to tell the interviewees, sorry, come back next summer. We have a bunch of emails to read.
Absolutely.
So we get as many as we can on here. And here's one from Ron. I'll go ahead and read it. I thought we'll just read through these. We have a couple of voicemail messages as well. I'll just read through these and we'll discuss them because they really hit home. So this one's from Ron. It says, this past Saturday, which for him at the time he wrote it would have been October 14th, I ran the Bare Buns Desert Run at Shangri-La Ranch in Arizona and had a really good time. While I ran the race, I listened to your podcast, episode 16, that was posted that morning. Being a slow runner, I really appreciated that your show is an hour long since it lasted my whole run. Your podcast is great. Love all the interesting information and interviews. So that's really nice. That's a nice letter from Ron. And I wrote back to him. I said, well, if you ever decide to run a marathon, that could be like 5, 6, 7 hours, depending on how slow you are. I said, let us know and we'll create a show, 6, 7 hours long, just so he can have something to listen to while he runs. But wasn't that a nice letter from Ron?
I have a very nice letter from Ron, and I identify with him. I am not a fast runner myself. I'm a fast walker, slow jogger. And that's about the extent of my running ability. But no, that's really great. And it's I've been out doing that, running, walking, and having something to listen to. If it's something you can really focus on, it's really fun because you kind of get this pace going, and even if it's just some words. And it really helps motivate you through the entire process. So that's great. I'm glad he was listening with us.
Yeah, and I'm guessing he didn't say this, but I'm guessing it was a 5K, which is roughly 3 miles, maybe just a tad over 3 miles. And I know people who have run that going back to high school, not when I was in high school, but my kids were in high school. One of my sons ran cross country, and some of these kids would finish in 13, 14 minutes. I mean, it's ridiculous.
It's unreal.
Other kids would take 35 minutes. It's just, you have the whole gamut there. I've never done an actual 5K. In a race. I wonder how long it would take me. Probably closer to the 35 than the 13, just guessing. And you think about the same for yourself?
Oh, I'd say absolutely. Because, and I haven't been running it for a while. Hadn't had the opportunity. And first of all, it was so bloody hot that, you had to get up at dark 30 to go running here. So, but yeah, I'm better on a stationary bike. I can get some real fast time going on a stationary bike, but running never was my thing, even as a kid. So
yeah, I mean, it just all depends on what works for the individual. For Ron, obviously, running works. For me, running works. And just glad we could keep him company during his run. So we'll keep doing that. If no other reason, we'll keep the show going just for Ron. How's that sound?
Just for Ron and his, so he needs to get in shape so he can do even a longer race quicker.
Well, by the time he's done listening to each one of our episodes, if he runs during each episode, he's going to be ready for the Ironman competition.
He certainly is, and we'll just keep him going.
That's right. All right. Well, thank you to Ron. Let's move on to our next one. Now, this is from Robert. And Lisa, why don't you go ahead and read that one for us?
Okay, well, Robert sent in, I just found your podcast and I'm really enjoying it. I'm a longtime nudist from Sydney, Australia. Unfortunately, I listen to your podcast clothed as I'm at the gym. Keep up the good work.
All right. Now, probably wise to be clothed in the gym if those are the rules of the gym, but
Probably so.
But we appreciate him listening to us while he works out. And really, this show, we've been finding out from people all over, literally all over the world, how they listen to our show or where they are. And I think I've heard everything, literally. Ron, obviously, while he's running a race, Robert, while he's working out, other people while they're cooking, working in the garden, driving. We have a number of people who save our show, even though it comes out on Saturday. If they're not leaving for a car ride until the next Thursday, they'll wait. They'll wait the 5 days so that they can have a focused time with us in their car as they're driving along. And then they might nail down 1 or 2 episodes, depending how long their drive is. So that's kind of nice to hear.
It's wonderful to hear. It's very encouraging that they're enjoying what we have to say. And also that we're reaching them, that they're, that there's, I don't know whether we started really wanting to do a message per se, other than just, enjoy the virtues of naturism. But it's really nice because we also get a lot of comments about what we're saying and, the perspective we're giving them and making them think. And that's a wonderful thing. So, and to know that they're kind of planning now when they want to do this, that's pretty cool. I'm very appreciative of the fact that they care enough to work us into their lifestyle as opposed to just grabbing it whenever they have a second.
Yeah, very much so. Now, I would encourage people to not do what I did recently. I had a dentist appointment, so I was in the chair, and they got me all set, ready to go. And the dentist hadn't come in yet, and the assistants, whatever they're called, dental assistant, I think they left the room, but I'm not totally sure because when you're in that office, your back is to the doors from the hallway. So I don't think she was in there, but I decided while I was having this dental procedure, I would listen to one of our shows. And so I had my headphones ready to go, and I don't know if I forgot to put them on or I didn't connect them, through the Bluetooth. But I hit play, and all of a sudden I heard Lisa's voice. It's time to take off your clothes.
Well,
that was my Lisa
funny.
Impersonation.
That'll wake you up.
And of course, I had it on full blast, not intentionally, probably from the night before. And I don't know if anybody heard it. I thought to myself, hopefully not. And if they did, hopefully they won't say anything. They didn't. I hit stop and got the headphones, and life was good after that. But yeah, so I even enjoyed it while having dental work done. Now, that might be the epitome of enjoying our show is you got a drill going on in your mouth, and you're listening to Naked Nudists and Naturists with Frank and Lisa. How about that?
We've had some fantastic guests, so they're wonderful to listen to. So, and besides, you have Lisa. No.
That's right.
Okay, well, I had to give that a shot.
Did you like my impersonation of you? Was that anywhere close?
Oh, yes, that was just lovely. Yeah. You're so good at that.
Because that's the first thing our listeners hear is your voice. It's time to take off your clothes.
Hey, what can I tell you?
That's right. Okay, let's listen to a voicemail now. This was done by Will Forrest and D.H. Jonathan, both authors in the naturism world. And we've had both of them on the show already, and they were at an event, I believe, at their naturist nudist resort in Oklahoma, and they were there to sell books on that particular Saturday. I mean, they go there a lot to enjoy the facility, but on that particular day, they were naked as jaybirds, sitting at a table, selling their books, and they took time during their session to send us a voicemail. So here we go. Let's listen to that right now.
Hey, Frank and Lisa. This is Dan Hawkins, otherwise known as D.H. Jonathan, and sometimes known as Naked Dan here on Twitter. I'm sitting here at the Oak Lake Trails Fall Festival, sharing a table with Will Forrest. Say hello, Will.
Hello, Frank. Hello, Lisa. Thanks again for having us on your show. We've gotten a lot of attention out here, and the interviews that we've done with you have certainly helped.
Yes, they have. I know we've had some people mention you to us here at the festival, and when they come up to buy our books. So I just wanted to say thank you as well. I hope that the show's going well. I've been listening. I listened this morning on the way out here. I think it was episode 16 this morning, right? But like I said, just wanted to thank you for having us on, and keep up the good work.
Thanks again.
And that was the voicemail from D.H. Jonathan and Will Forrest, both nudist, naturist authors and living the clothes-free life for all the right reasons as well. And wasn't that a very nice a voicemail, Lisa?
Extremely nice of them while they were sitting there, attending to their business, to take a few moments away from I'm sure the crowd around them wanting to talk to them, to talk to us. And I think that's fabulous and really appreciated.
Yeah, I do too. And they were both terrific guests, and they're out there. They're doing what we're doing, just in a different format. We're doing the voice on naturism, and they're doing the written word on naturism, and both doing a terrific job. And we wish them great success and continued writing and publishing books, right?
Absolutely. I can't wait to read more.
That's right. All right, let's do one more on today's show, and then we will save more for episode 20. This one's a little bit longer, from a gentleman named Bud, B-U-D-D. He sent this to us, so let's go ahead and read it. I have enjoyed about half of the podcast episodes so far, and I'm trying to get caught up on the rest of them. I have had a thought each time that Frank talks about what naturism is and is not. He makes sure to point out that it's not about being exhibitionist and trying to be seen, but instead about being naked privately. I agree that there is a big difference between naturism and exhibitionism, but I believe there is a role to play for each of us to be tactfully willing to be seen in our natural state. And Lisa, why don't you go ahead and read the next section?
Okay. He continues, we can't expect to normalize nudity if nobody ever sees it. Taking care of where and around whom I am seen has led to great experiences of people in swimming suits at hot springs, lake shores, etc., being very receptive to me, enjoying those opportunities nude in their presence. At hot springs, even in areas where nudity is not the norm at hot springs, I will politely ask if anyone will be offended if I soak nude, and at lakeshore beaches, when the setting seems appropriate and the number of people nearby is low, I will ask the same thing. Would they be offended if I swim, lay out in the sun, or even fish in the nude?
Okay. I'll read the next section. Occasionally, someone will be surprised and say they would prefer I don't do that, but most of the time they shrug and don't have a problem with it. I believe this is a great way to help normalize nudity at places other than naturist resorts, which are few and far between in this very socially conservative part of the United States. Thanks for what you're doing. And that's from Bud. And I did write Bud back because whatever I've said on the show before, he took incorrectly, and that's not on Bud, that's on me. I am not into the whole naturism privately only thing. There's nothing wrong with a nude beach and a nudist resort and so on and so forth, and being seen and seeing others. That's part of social naturism. Now, he expanded it just a little bit. He takes his clothes off, it sounds like, in textile areas.
Mm-hmm.
But he'll ask, hey, do you mind if I get naked? And I guess if they say no, he puts his clothes on. But I haven't pushed it to that limit. But being seen nude is part of being a naturist. So I thought I better clear that up. And I did write that back to Bud and told him I'd share that. But he did prompt some thinking on my part, so we really appreciate his letter. Any response on your part?
No, I think you're right in that we don't ever want to give the misconception that nudity is too private. It's not for anyone's eyes. The fact is that it's not really the nudity that's for anyone's eyes. It's being a naturist around other people who feel the same way, who just happen to also be naked. And that's what naturism is that freedom away from being constrained in any fashion. And from a clothing standpoint, now there are some things we should be constrained about when we're naturists, but I think that we just need to be, the being nude needs to be the last thing that we think of when we're being a naturist. I agree with him that there are fringes of this community that may want to be more seen than enjoy their being naked, but those are few and far between, and hopefully not part of our community. But it's part of being naked, is part of naturism.
Yeah, exactly. And I know when I'm in social naturism situations, You're right. That I don't think about, oh, check out that one over there. Hey, hope they're checking me out. That's not on my mind. It might be on some minds, and we cast no aspersions here.
Yeah.
You do your thing, and that's okay. And but like you said, that's kind of the last thing. The first thing I think about is, okay, now here we are, and I can get to know these people a whole lot better because all the nonsense is gone, which we talked about a million times, right?
Exactly. It's comes back to the basis of who we are, not what we are or what we represent. And as long as we can keep it in that vein and keep that focus that we're here to enjoy each other, enjoy whatever environment we're in, whatever sport we're playing, or whatever food we're eating, or whatever, we're doing it as a unit and a cohesive group of people who enjoy the same things. The thing I love about naturism, and it's one of the few things that we can do, as sports sometimes brings people together, except that if you don't have a lot of money, you're sitting in the bleachers. If you have a lot of money, you're sitting in a box. So there is, where we may share the same support for the team, we're still not in essence equal in that respect. So this takes away all of that. It just kind of takes away that, there's no box seats at a nudist resort.
Right.
Unless there's one out there that I don't know about. but
Right.
but I think it keeps us equal, and it keeps us focused on what's really important, and that's personalities and people and how we treat each other.
Yeah, no, that's right. And Bud did mention at the end, I already read it,
Yeah.
but I'll mention it again. He believes it's a great way to normalize nudity at places other than naturist resorts, and here's the kicker, which are few and far between in this very socially conservative part of the United States. I don't know where he's from, but so he has that to deal with too. You can't just drive down the street, here's a naturist resort. You have to make your own situations. And so hats off to Bud. And we do want to thank the people whose emails we read today. Obviously, Robert, Ron, Bud, and of course, Will and Dan for their voicemail. And Lisa Monroe, we have to move on. But as always, thank you. Stay clothes free, stay smiling, and we'll see you next time.
Absolutely. You too, Frank. And we will get this done again soon.
All right. Have a great day. We'll see you next time. And there she goes again, dancing out the door to her theme song. I half expect every time I start talking like this, I expect her to walk back in and say, hey, what are you talking about me for? But she often has to leave right away. Other things going on that she has to get to. But we do appreciate Lisa Monroe coming in every single week to be a big part of this show. And I've referenced this more than once. She always comes in with a smile on her face, in a good mood, says nice things, and just loves being alive and living the clothes-free life for all of the right reasons. Now, was she this happy and this much of a go-getter when she lived the textile life? I don't know. I didn't know her back then. But I know her now, and I know that she's always happy all of the time, always excited about life, and definitely excited about this show. And so we appreciate Lisa Monroe coming in every single week. Well, you are listening to Naked, Nudists, and Naturists, episode 19 today. We give you a brand new show every Saturday morning, 6 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time on Spotify, branches out from there to the other platforms. Be sure to check out our website, nakednudistandnaturist.com. You can write to us. The best way is through Twitter. Find us there, Naked, Nudists, and Naturists. You can send emails. Still a little squeamish about emails, but we're getting better at it. You can send an email to nakedforevermore@gmail.com, and we will respond. You can also leave questions and suggestions on Spotify, on YouTube, and on our website. And don't forget, every Wednesday morning, also 6 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time, we give you a preview of the upcoming show, and those are put on YouTube, anywhere from 6 to 7 to 10 minutes or so. A little taste of this, a little taste of that. Tells you what's coming up on the show. And it's on video. And that's every Wednesday morning, 6 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time on YouTube. The preview comes up. And then on Saturday, just like today, the entire show hits. Well, thank you again for being with us on Naked, Nudists, and Naturists, episode 19 today. Now let's head to part one of my interview with the terrific Tim Chizmar. So let's go out to Las Vegas, Nevada, and meet a gentleman who's really huge in the nudist world. He's naked all of the time out there. He's also clothed a lot, too. We'll talk about that. Certainly a best-selling writer, award-winning speaker, written a number of books, does a lot of ghostwriting, has his own publishing house, did a lot of stand-up comedy in the Los Angeles area, did naked stand-up comedy for a while, and the list goes on and on and on. So let's just bring him to the show this morning and find out everything that he's done, is doing, and is going to do. From Las Vegas, Nevada, Tim Chizmar. Good morning, Tim. How are you today?
It's me, it's him, it's TIM. It's good to be here. Frank, I made it. I made it all the way to Naked, Nudists, and Naturists. How did I get into this exclusive party?
Well, we only take the superstars here, and your name was on the list, so here you are. By the way, I was hoping you would say it's me, it's him, it's TIM, because you say it to everybody else. I thought he better say that here, or we'll have to, cut the interview and rehearse and then do it again. But you did.
Otherwise, they wouldn't know it's me.
That's true. Could be an imposter.
It's AI. AI has taken over everything.
I know. You might not be real this morning, and I might not be real either. How do we really know?
We need Lisa Monroe to come in and save us both.
Yeah, she's not here today. Probably thank goodness, because she would turn the interview upside down. We'd never get anything done. It would be fun, but we wouldn't get anything done. But you're out there all over the place in the world of nudism, and I heard you on a show before. You prefer the word nudist over naturist. Maybe just tell us why, and then I want to get into your backstory about living the naked life, how you got into it, and what it's done for you.
Well, they're pretty, as you know. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir, but they're pretty interchangeable. My understanding of a nudist is it's more on the recreational side. So resorts, clubs, that sort of thing. It tends to be folks who are affluent or who want to live off the grid, kind of doing an RV lifestyle, that sort of thing. Whereas with naturists, it's more about being a part of nature. This is hiking trails and hot springs, and that's the big separation. But I will tell you, the more that I've been, my little championing over here has been to try to cross over from strictly nudist or naturist into the mainstream. And in doing so, I find myself referring to myself more often with clothes free. I've been referring to myself as a clothes free individual, living a clothes free life, because I find that when I say nudist, not for us, not for you and me and our close friends and clubs, but the general person on the street don't want to be associated with those people. They've been characterized as being in nude resort. Well, they would call them colonies, nudist colonies. And so they think it's, a bunch of weird, fat, dumpy, lumpy people in the, where you shouldn't go, and it's questionable with kids and all this. So, and then with naturists, that tends to be people who care about being vegan and living this life of being health conscious and all this. So I find the longer that I'm around it and trying to cross over, clothes free is simply stating that we live a lifestyle sans textile, sans clothes. And I feel like it's embracing more and more for the youth, for the younger college age crowd, where if you ask them, are you a nudist? They would say no. But then they would openly tell you that on Saturdays, they go naked hiking to the naked hot springs with their friends. Oh, but don't call me a nudist.
That's true. Well, that's actually one of our subtitles / moniker here, clothes free living for all of the right reasons, because that's what it is. And I agree with you. And I always called myself a nudist from basically birth on, or whenever I could formulate the word nudist. And then talking to Stefan Deshane within the last year or two, and I know you've done a lot on his show. We'll talk about that during the interview today.
Sure.
But of course, he prefers the term naturist, and he explained why, and it made perfect sense.
Right. He's like a Zen guru on top of a mountain. He feels that it's not just the body, but it's also the mindset. So he he takes this whole Raiden from Mortal Kombat approach to it.
Well, I call him the godfather of naturism. He doesn't necessarily like that because he doesn't want it to be about him, but who does more? Who's done more over the last several years than Stefan Deshane?
Such a mighty mustache, a mighty, mighty stash.
We could only be so lucky. That's right. But he's done a lot in that world, and he explained the difference to me, and I won't take time to go into it now, but you're right about the nudist thing. You tell people you're a nudist, oh, one of those weird people who goes to a club and has sexual activity with everybody under the sun. It's like, no, but naturists, people don't really question. Oh, okay, you like to live with your clothes off, no big deal. Doesn't make any sense, but who knows? But
It,
you're okay with them being interchangeable.
it should be, I am, and it should be pointed out that Stefan, of course, was the prime minister of my fictional country of Noodland. He is
Right.
Pierre Moustache from the Noodles of Noodland.
I remember that. I remember hearing that interview. Well, how did you get started now? As I recall from hearing you talk before, you basically been naked your whole life. So when did it start for you? And when did you officially designate yourself as a nudist?
Yeah, I think that this is one of those things that if you're not aware that it exists, like for example, I didn't grow up in a nudist household. There was no
Right.
nude resorts, nude beaches. It wasn't even. It just wasn't a. It wasn't discussed. It wasn't shunned against either. It just simply didn't exist. So at my earliest the first time I remember being exposed, pardon the pun, to what a nudist was, I was watching an episode of Unsolved Mysteries. And on this episode, there was a criminal who was hiding out at a nudist resort. And so the detectives were showing up and they had really careful and clever filming. So they had nudists, but it was a lot of Austin Powers implied nudity. And I remember just being fascinated. They went to somebody's RV and knocked on the door, and this woman answered the door and she was naked, and they implied that she was naked. And I remember it just felt right as a little kid. I didn't have some sexual excitement. It was more just, oh, that's something we could do. That's something people do. Where does
Yeah.
this happen? And I remember that being such a spark for me. And then it wasn't until years later when I was in college and I was an art student that we would have models pose nude for our art classes. And as
Mhm.
soon as I had my very first nude model, I immediately said, I must do this. This
Yeah.
is a bucket list thing.
Yeah.
I must be a nude model. And so
Yeah.
I chased after it and I got hired and I posed nude for art classes. And I got known as the naked guy on campus. And I would run into somebody and they would say, I know you from somewhere. And then I would go in their dorm and they had pictures of me on their wall. And it was great. I absolutely loved it. And then from there, I got into the N magazine from the Naturist Society and nude photography, like what's his name? The guy who gets all the groups together, Spencer
Uh,
Tunick. Spencer
oh, yeah.
Tunick
Okay.
photography. And then I sought out the closest nudist resort to where I grew up. And I'm a Pennsylvania boy.
Mhm.
So the college I went to was Edinburgh University. And the closest nude resort was Whitethorn Lodge in Darlington, Pennsylvania, underneath Pittsburgh.
Okay. Okay.
So that's where I went down to spend my very first full day nude at a resort around fellow nudists.
Wow. So you actually did nude modeling for art classes, for college classes, while you were still a college student?
Yes.
Wow, good for you. Any pushback on that from professors or other people within the university?
No, no. And I even did additional classes where on the weekends they would have these extra sessions for art students where they would get together. So I would do Saturdays and then I would do in the class. And then some of the artists would hire me for additional, like let's say they're working on a painting and this painting is going to take a month. So
Yeah.
every, Saturday and Sunday, I would sit for a few hours in the same pose while they're working on this painting. So
Wow.
things like that. It was a great experience and one of those things that makes me very happy and to think back on it. So
Yeah.
that was up until 2005. I graduated from college and I moved to California because
Mm.
I was always an entertainment guy, and there's not
Yeah.
a lot of entertainment that you can chase in the Erie, Pennsylvania area. Like, what am I going to be like the local newscaster? Talking about the weather and the store. No. So
Yeah.
for me, I worked in pro wrestling. Here's what I did when I was in college. I
Yeah.
I swear to God, I was a full time student and I assistant taught daycare. I was a nude model. I promoted professional wrestling shows. I wrote for the newspaper. I had a television show and I had a radio show, which led to me becoming the general manager of my radio station. I did
Wow.
all of that while being a full time student. So as soon as I graduated, I moved to California. I sold a screenplay, got into stand up comedy, and I have never let off on being that kind of guy who likes to have a bunch of stuff going at the same time.
Wow, that's amazing. Just really quickly before we delve more into that, when I went to college, I majored in music. The music building was physically attached to the art building. In fact, because of where the parking was, I would walk through the entire art building to get to the music building. And of course, they had nude modeling going on there. And I was told, because it was a very serious institution, of course, of classical music training, that if I even put my name in to be a nude model, I might be escorted out of the music building and not allowed back in. And that's how serious it was back then. So, yeah, they didn't want me doing anything like that. We're serious musicians here, and you're going to have a career in music, but we're not going to tolerate that. And only one professor told me that, and I didn't dare share it with anybody else. But that's why I asked if you got any pushback, and I'm glad you did not. I mean, this wasn't just for fun, although it was a lot of fun, but you made money at it too, right? To pay some college
Yes.
bills, and yeah,
Pretty good money for a college student. I remember
yeah.
that. And every class was like 2.5 hours or something. So let's say it was $50 an hour, then it was like 100 and $25 or something. So
Yeah.
that's it was a good time. And I remember my step uncle, like my stepmother's sister's boyfriend. Life is complicated. They have
Good to
kids.
know.
They're not married. I can't even say they're. I don't know what the heck. Anyway, this guy, he was an art. He had been an art student and he works in art. And he warned me that in his experience, he had seen the female, in particular, it was a female art model, get teased and made fun of, and she went running out of a classroom crying. And so he
Oh boy.
warned me about that before I did it for the first time. And he got into my head, and so I had to mentally prepare myself in case I was to get naked and somebody was going to make fun of me. So in my head, I was thinking about all the stuff they could say. I'm like, all right, fat guy, man boobs, small penis, here we go. And I just had to mentally prepare for him. But what I found was that everybody else was way more embarrassed than I was. They
Yeah.
weren't making eye contact. They were shy and nervous, and I was completely fine with it. So that was the opposite in my experience. Which this has been the most joyous fun for me in the nudist world is hearing these things that people think are the way it is and then discovering that that's not the case, sometimes for
Yeah.
good or for bad. Sometimes I hear about something that, oh, it's so great for nudists, and then I experience it and I have to be the grumbly Grinch on the mountain who says it's not as great as you thought it was.
Yeah, sad but true. I know exactly what you mean. So, I know you've worked with a lot of big time folks in the comedy sector. I probably won't get them all, but certainly Jeff Foxworthy, Dana Carvey, Kevin Smith, Daniel Tosh, and John Lovitz. But you also do a lot of naked comedy. What's the difference between getting on stage fully naked and doing your comedy skit, or being fully clothed during your doing your comedy skit? Any differences at all?
Yes, yes, yes. And Gabriel Iglesias and on Nick Swardson. I've written for Adam Sandler. I could go on and on.
Wow.
Jack Black. There's
Yes.
lots of familiar names and faces here in Las Vegas. I was opening for Louis Anderson for quite a while.
Wow.
So yes, when it comes to the textile world of stand-up comedy, there's a lot of politicking and a lot of drama. Comedians, I'm sorry, I'm going to be honest. I'm not always going to say the things you want me to say. Not you, but I mean in general. When
Right.
people listen to
Right.
this, they want
Right.
it to be a world of rainbows and flowers. But the truth is, comedians tend to be not so great people off the
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah.
They tend to be very selfish and self-centered, and any success that you have takes away from them. So,
Right.
for example, if I get booked to headline a comedy club in Arizona, a typical comedian's response is, who books that room? How can I get in? Do you need an opener this weekend? Can I get a guest set? Can I drop in? Why can't I drop in? Did you tell them how funny I am? It's just
Oh,
a very snarky kind of shark infested waters. And
mm,
I don't thrive in that environment.
mm.
I'm at my core more a writer, And I find that writers are a lot more encouraging and motivating and willing to help each other. And so my time in writing, whether it be screenplays, short stories, magazines, novels, I ran the HWA, the Horror Writers Association, for 2 years here in Las Vegas. And my time with writers is much better than my time in stand-up comedy. Like, comedians just are very snarky people. That being said, when I find somebody that's cool and easy to get along with, I stay with them for a long time. And we build a strong relationship. And performing on stage, I tell you what, for me, I'm a producer promoter. Early on in stand-up comedy, I learned that a comedian doesn't have as much power as a producer. If a comedian shows up and tells a comedy club owner, I'm a funny guy, please give me a shot, put me on stage, you're at the bottom of the totem pole. And then it's, if you're friends with a celebrity, the celebrity will vouch for you and get you a shot. And look, it's a game I don't want to play. Frank, I'm sorry, but I am just, you can work hard or you can work smart. And I'm the kind of guy who goes straight up to the general manager of a comedy club and I say, give me your lowest night where you sell the least drinks and food and I will pack it. And and so they'll give me a shot. They'll give me a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And when I pack it out, I slowly move up the chain. That's what I did at the John Lovitz Comedy Club. I started off with, a Tuesday and then a Wednesday and then a Thursday and then weekends. And pretty soon I'm working with John because I know how to sell. I know how to put butts in seats. And, I know people want to think that the arts are all about talent and ability, but the truth is it's about selling food and drink. These clubs don't care how funny you are on stage as long as people are eating and drinking. And so if you go into it without taking that offensively and saying, where's the art in that? And instead you just say, don't hate the player, hate the game. This is how it is. I'm going to do it better than anybody else. That's when you start to make money, have success. And then other people want to be on your shows. And so you get to trade off. When I'm doing at my highest point in stand-up, I was doing a monthly show at the Ontario Improv, Irvine Improv, Brea Improv, Hollywood Improv, John Lovitz Comedy Club, and road gigs in colleges. And that was every month. And if you don't think that ticked off a ton of comedians, then you're not paying attention, because the comedians were not happy about this young new kid. They wanted me to spend 20 years kicking around some open mic, working for cheese sticks before I started making money. And the fact that I landed in 2005, sold a screenplay, started getting into the business, and by 2007, I was a full-time stand-up comic and producer. I made some friends and I made some enemies, my friend.
Well, I've been through a lot of that too, and in the music field, it's basically the same. You get a gig with a really good band, and somebody, sure enough, who plays the same instrument. Well, he's not very good. Why do they hire him? He does this wrong, that wrong, and they should have hired me. But also in the radio world, and it's transferred to the podcast world, as we're finding out. But I had a major league media star. I won't mention his name during the interview, but I will tell you when the interview is over if you want to know. Major league, you would know his name. So would everybody listening, I think. Because he has a worldwide, internationally famous for what he does.
You should type it in the chat. Type it in the chat so I can see.
Okay. All right. I will in a minute. He also has a radio show in the same city where I was doing mine. And I started booking some pretty high-end guests in the world of sports and media, some really top players. And all of a sudden, after a month or two of that, they stopped taking my calls. They wouldn't respond to me through email, nothing. Well, I found out from a guy who worked in the back room at that other radio station. He had called people and said, don't take this guy's calls or I'll never have you on my show again.
Yeah.
Now, my show was beating his in terms of ratings. He had been doing it, 183 years, and I had not. So it's the same thing. Who's this young punk think he is? No, we're gonna squash him right now. So. But you said in the writing field, it's not necessarily that way. That's good.
No, in the writing field, it's very supportive. It's very encouraging. It's very, it's not that same way. And it was kind of nice because I was able to take things that I learned the hard way in the comedy business and apply it to the book industry. I'll give you a quick example. So I went to a meeting in LA of the HWA, and I had an idea for a horror book that I wanted to write. But at that time, I had a comfort zone. My comfort zone was magazines, screenplays, short stories. It was not a full-length novel. So it was just an idea. Of course, it involved a nudist resort and some other things. There's a demon. This girl sells her soul and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, I told them the idea, and I was smiley and just real full of confidence. At the end of the meeting, this woman approached me, and she said that she runs a traditional publishing house, and she loves me, my success, and what I've been doing, and all this. And she said her publishing house would like to offer me a book deal based
Wow.
on what I had talked about at the meeting. Now, remember, between you and me, I didn't have a book. It was just an idea. I didn't have it written, but she didn't know that. And so she tells me this, and I take her card and I say, "Oh, thank you very much." I put it in my pocket. I move on, Frank. I forget about it. A couple of months later, I'm at the LA Times Festival of Books, and she approaches me and she says, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" I go off to the side, and she says, "Tim, I've been talking to my team, and we think we know why you haven't agreed to sign with us." Now, remember, I didn't have a book, okay,
Yeah,
but
nothing
she
to do.
doesn't
Yeah.
know that. So she goes,
Right.
"We were talking, and we insulted you when we offered you a one book deal. We would
Wow.
now like to offer you a three-book deal if you would please consider publishing with us." So I like to share that story with people because while they're focusing on getting a literary agent and setting the right query and doing all this kind of jumping through hoops and impressing gatekeepers, all I had to do was be confident and be a cool dude. And here she is offering me a three-book deal. That is a perfect example of the kind of career I've had, whether it be comedy or writing or music or, any of these other facets, publishing, nudism, whatever. It's just act as if. Stop waiting
Yeah.
for people to say yes and just do it.
That's a great story. Now, I'm guessing you didn't say a 3-book deal. Well, you've insulted me again. They came back with a 25-book deal. That probably didn't happen.
Yeah, no, I at that point I said, let's do this thing. But I wanted to tell you that as far as comedy goes, and some of the not so great guys in the comedy business, there's a semi-famous comedian who likes to play this nasty trick on local comedians when he comes to town. He will announce on his social media that he has 3 slots for openers to do a guest set on his show, and he'll put it out on social media. And so you have all these local comics submitting their clips of their stand-up comedy, and he watches them and laughs at them with the guys at the club. So
Okay.
he makes fun of, look at these idiots, look at these people who think they have a shot at being on my show. Well, when I
Oh, no.
discovered that he does that, I wanted to be the good guy. I wanted to be the hero, and I tried to blow his cover, and I tried to tell the comedy world about this guy. But the thing is, he had a lot more followers than I did. And so when I tried to tell people, he immediately posted, "Tim Chizmar doesn't want to give young comedians a break. He's trying to spread this rumor about me. And what do you think? I guess I shouldn't let anyone perform again. Why don't you tell Tim what you think?" And overnight, I had like 200 comedians wanting me, offed because I'm ruining their
Sure.
career. And
Oh,
it's a darn shame sometimes when you
yeah.
try to do the right thing and it just
Mm.
turns around to bite you in the butt.
Yeah. Well, I've always told people, if somebody's outdoing you, rather than tear them apart, because that really ultimately doesn't do any good, maybe work harder, work smarter, maybe learn from the guy who's doing better than you.
Sure.
Unfortunately, a lot of people follow that advice, but some do not. Now back to the stand-up comedy. I can picture and visualize a stand-up comic fully clothed, audience fully clothed, because I've seen that a million times.
Sure.
Never seen a naked comedian in person. What is that experience like? And is the audience nude as well, or not necessarily?
That's a great question, and it's been one of the areas of discussion because the same with naked plays and some of these other things. There's always that question of I just did a long form interview with Nikki Hoffman from the Naturist Society, and we talked about this as far as resorts. Is it better to be fully nude or clothing optional? Well, there's you can see it from both sides because if you do something that is strictly nudist, the majority of my comedy shows that I produced and booked and all that, I did them where everyone had to be naked. And here was my mindset for that. I didn't want people to come clothed and us be the butt of the joke. I didn't
Yeah.
want them to come in and look at these stupid naked people. Oh, look at them. Ha ha ha. I wanted it to be like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, where if you came, you were part of us. You were
Okay.
one of us.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to indulge yourself in this. And rightfully so, we would have no videotaping and no photography, so that they also felt comfortable. And that worked with celebrity drop-ins. I had a lot of celebrity people who would drop in on my comedy shows because they knew there was no footage and I wasn't going to sell it to TMZ or anything like that. So, but that being said, there's an argument on the other side where a lot of people, including Nikki Hoffman, says in the interview that I gave her, that she feels the clothing option was a better way, because if somebody had told her you have to get naked the first time she showed up, she would
Yeah.
never have went. So
Right.
it can be kind of a gateway for some people to see what it's like, get comfortable, and then get naked. So I don't know, man. You could see it both ways. But for my stand-up comedy, I always was looking for a niche or an angle, no matter what, for stand-up. I felt like just regular stand-up is a little boring, and vanilla. So, like, for example, I worked in pro wrestling. And so very early on, I created something called Championship Comedy, which was before Roast Battle ever existed. And so it was a way for us to have title belts and referees, and we included the zany wildness of pro wrestling, but also with stand-up comedy. So I tell you that to tell you this. That's why I wanted to get into naked stand-up. Was I
Mhm.
was thinking, how do I combine these two things that I'm passionate about, that I genuinely love? And that was by doing a stand-up comedy show. I rented a private theater, and the comedians were naked, the audience was naked, and it was fun. We did it, and then from there I went on. I did nude comedy shows at resorts like Glen Eden and Olive Dale. We did arts colleges like Cal Arts, and then I did a lot of
Mhm.
private theaters. And it led all the way up to getting the attention of Showtime, and they optioned it to do a TV show. And
Mhm.
they ultimately didn't. They didn't do that. But there's a theater in LA where I sold my website to him, and he still does naked comedy shows to this day.
Well, that's great. Now, Showtime did pay you for that, right? They
Yeah.
just didn't do the work, but they gave you a check up front.
Right, right. It's an
Yeah.
option. It's the same
Yeah.
thing. The very first screenplay I ever sold was an option for. It was called Checkered Flags, a comedy about
Yeah.
race, and it was about racial relations. A black guy goes in a NASCAR, and there's all these issues because it's old rich white guys, and so yeah. We anyway, but yeah. I optioned that. I got paid, and that's how Hollywood is. Do you know there?
Sure.
I've shot so many pilots and so many series that I got paid, but nobody will ever see. And that's part of why I got
Mm.
frustrated and angry at the end of 2016. I took a sabbatical and went up to Idaho to teach
Yeah.
for kids who had behavioral issues. And I
Yeah.
worked on novels because I had to detox off of Hollywood. I just
Yeah.
felt that I was sick of getting paid to do things that nobody would ever see. Or
Yeah.
celebrities would hire me to work on their projects, but then meanwhile I would say, "Hey, I've got my own ideas. Why am I good enough to work on yours but nobody will fund my own?" So I needed to find a better way, a different angle.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, the comedy clubs I've been to or seen on TV, sometimes a comedian will tell a joke that, for lack of a better term, is a groaner. The audience will, just kind of, and sometimes you get heckling in the comedy field. I know about that. Is there a difference when you're performing naked in front of the audience, even if it's a really bad joke or a potential groaner? They just kind of laugh it off because, hey, we're naked and having fun. Or is there a difference?
Yeah, I think they're less critical. I,
Yeah.
I think there's an appreciation of the fact that these people did come out. A lot of my shows would involve people who were trying it for the first time, so that helped
Okay.
to lower the bar. So
Okay.
people were like, they're just happy that they're here and they're experiencing it and they're trying it. I also have real pros, so I try to balance it out where it's got a little bit of the newbies and then the hardcore headliner who's really gonna take it home, and then surprises and things along the way. But yeah, I think there's an appreciation that they're even giving it a shot.
What a terrific guy. Really enjoyed talking to him. Tim Chizmar, currently living in Las Vegas. You can find him at timchizmar.com. You can find him a lot of other places as well. He is a nude caster for clothesfree.com. An amazing bevy of work. The guy's always working. I don't think he sleeps. I think he is one of those who really does not sleep. He's just working, working, working. I think our interview was 5 o'clock in the morning for him. He'd already been up a few hours. It gives you an idea just how hard Tim Chizmar works. And as he said, while he's working on one or two projects, he has another one or two in the works, and maybe one or two beyond that he's getting ready for. highly creative guy, and it's our pleasure to have had him on the show today. And part 2 of my interview with the terrific Tim CHIZMAR on next week's show, which will be episode 20. You've been listening to Naked Nudists and Naturists, episode 19 today. We really thank you for being with us. This is our time to get together as a community in naturism and nudism, clothes-free living for all the right reasons. Share some stories, reaffirm that it is normal, it's natural, it is how we were born. We were born to live the clothes-free life, weather permitting, of course, and here we are, enjoying it with you. Thank you for spending time with us today, and let's definitely do it again next week. Well, thank you again for being with us on Naked, Nudists, and Naturists, episode 19 today. We give you a brand new show every Saturday morning at 6 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. Continue to join us. Check us out on our website, nakednudistandnaturist.com, Spotify, Google, Amazon/Audible, Apple Podcasts, and also on Twitter. You can write us anywhere, anytime, any place. And we thank you for being with us today. Plan to join us for every single one of our shows here and have your clothes off when you're listening. We have our clothes off when we're broadcasting, enjoying the naturist life.
We celebrate clothes-free living for all. Remember to enjoy being naked and join us again for Naked Nudists and Naturists.
We drop a brand new show every Saturday morning, so come back and join us. Have your clothes off when you do for Naked Nudists and Naturists. Have a great clothes-free day.